Some of you are walking around today and you don't even realize it, but your heart is blind to the blessings that are already surrounding you. You are looking at what you don't have, and in doing so, you are missing what has been provided. God's provision does not always come in ways that are loud, obvious, or comfortable. Sometimes it comes wrapped in trials. Sometimes it comes disguised in delays, and sometimes it comes softly, whispering in the quiet moments when no one else is watching. The question is not whether God is faithful. The question is, are you grateful for what He is doing in every season of your life, even when it doesn't make sense? Recognizing God's provision begins with seeing the invisible. Too many people are waiting for the miraculous to land in their laps, and in the waiting, they fail to notice the subtle blessings that are already there. It may not be a paycheck, a promotion, or a visible answer to prayer. Sometimes provision comes as wisdom in confusion, strength in weakness, or peace in the midst of chaos. It may come as patience when your spirit is about to break, or as a friend showing up when you are at your lowest. Gratitude begins when you choose to acknowledge God's hand, even when the circumstances are contrary to your expectations. It begins when your inner voice says, God, I see you even when I don't feel you. I see you even when I don't understand. I see you even when the world seems against me. Your inner dialogue is powerful. Every thought you speak, every word you declare in the quiet of your mind has the potential to build or break you. When the enemy whispers, you can't do this, your heart must respond, I am fully provided for by God. When circumstances scream, you've waited too long, it's not coming, your inner voice must say, God's timing is perfect. He is faithful even in the delay. Gratitude is not passive, it is active faith. It is speaking life into your situation before the evidence appears, trusting that the God who has provided before will provide again. Delays are not denials. Sometimes God holds back the answer, not because He has forgotten, but because He is preparing you for the blessing. Sometimes He is realigning resources, guiding people, or shaping your character so that when the provision does come, it will not only meet your need, but exceed it. Every delay carries a lesson. Every pause is an opportunity for growth. Every season of waiting is a season of preparation. The faithful heart sees the hand of God working behind the scenes and refuses to be shaken by the ticking clock or the waiting room of life. Hard seasons are not punishments, they are teachers. They shape your perspective, refine your character, and stretch your faith. Storms, loss, disappointment, they reveal what is truly in your heart. They teach patience, resilience, and reliance on God. The question is whether you will allow these hard seasons to define you or to refine you. Will you let frustration, fear, and despair dictate your attitude, or will you allow these trials to cultivate gratitude, hope, and strength in your soul? Perspective is everything, and hard seasons have the power to reshape how you see life, God, and your own potential. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Life is a journey, and the blessings are not always final outcomes. Too often, people overlook the small victories because they are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect result, the perfect answer. But every step forward, no matter how small, is a testament to God's faithfulness. Every lesson learned, every obstacle overcome, every moment of growth is worth celebrating. Gratitude is not about perfection. It is about acknowledgement. It is about seeing the movement of God in your life and recognizing that every little step is part of the divine plan. Gratitude is a weapon. It has the power to silence discouragement, defeat fear, and strengthen faith. When you focus on what is missing, discouragement grows. When you focus on what is present, hope rises. Gratitude shifts your perspective from lack to abundance, from despair to expectation, and from fear to faith. It reminds you that even in the storms, God's provision is available. It reminds you that no delay is a denial, no difficulty is a defeat, and no challenge can overcome the one who is faithful. Your words, your thoughts, your declarations of thankfulness are spiritual weapons that align you with God's provision and power. So today, I ask you, are you truly grateful for God's provision in every season? Are you willing to see the blessings in the hidden? Speak life over the struggles, trust in the delays, embrace the storm, celebrate the steps forward. And use gratitude as a weapon against discouragement, because when your heart is aligned with thankfulness, when your inner dialogue reflects faith, and when your spirit chooses to recognize God's hand in every moment, your life begins to change from the inside out. You begin to walk in victory, not because everything is perfect, but because you have learned to see God's provision in every season. Too many of us are walking around blind to the blessings that are already surrounding us. We are so focused on what we do not have that we fail to see what has been placed right in front of us. The truth is, God's provision is often hidden. It doesn't always arrive in a way that makes sense to us. Sometimes it doesn't come wrapped in a bow. Sometimes it doesn't knock loudly on the door of our lives. Sometimes it comes softly, quietly, almost imperceptibly, and only those who have eyes to see and hearts willing to recognize it will understand that it is. You see, there are people struggling, complaining, and worrying about the bills, the opportunities, the relationships, and yet all the while, God is moving behind the scenes. He is orchestrating divine arrangements that they cannot yet detect. Provision doesn't always show up as a promotion, a check, or a visible answer to prayer. It can show up as wisdom in the middle of confusion. It can show up as strength when your body is weak. It can show up as patience when your spirit is about to break. It can show up as peace in the chaos or clarity in the storm. The provision is there, but our eyes are often clouded by doubt, frustration, and disappointment. And that is why gratitude begins not with what we see, but with what we choose to believe. It begins with training our inner voice to acknowledge God's hand, even when our circumstances are screaming something else. It begins when we say, God, I see you even when I don't feel you. I see you even when I don't understand. I see you even when my situation looks hopeless. That simple act of recognition, seeing God's provision in the hidden, is what transforms scarcity into abundance in the heart. Too many people are waiting for a miracle that looks like money, a miracle that looks like a job offer, a miracle that looks like an open door. And while God can certainly move in those ways, if we are not careful, we can miss all the other ways He is providing. There are people who are so busy looking for gold that they fail to notice the bread in their hands. There are people so focused on the light at the end of the tunnel that they ignore the light shining on the path before them. God's provision is often disguised in small moments, quiet answers, unexpected help, and subtle encouragement. It can be a friend who shows up at the right time, a word from a stranger that brings clarity, a moment of rest when your body needed it most. It can be a door closing that actually protects you from something harmful, or a delay that keeps you from rushing into disaster. Recognizing these hidden provisions requires more than seeing with your eyes. It requires seeing with your spirit. And here is where the power of inner dialogue comes in. What you say to yourself, how you interpret the unseen determines whether you feel lack or abundance. If your mind is constantly whispering, I don't have enough, I'm missing out, I'm behind, you will miss the blessings God has already given you. But But if your inner dialogue begins to declare, God is faithful, He is working on my behalf, I have everything I need for this moment, then gratitude begins to rise and your perspective shifts. You begin to notice things you never noticed before. You begin to see that the roof over your head, the food on your table, the breath in your lungs, and the love surrounding you are all proofs of God's provision. You begin to see that even your struggles carry seeds of growth, and even your setbacks carry hidden opportunities for blessing. It is a spiritual discipline to recognize the provision even when it is hidden, because our natural human instinct is to focus on the gap, the absence, the lack. But God invites us to look beyond what is obvious. He invites us to see the invisible threads of care, the unseen orchestration of resources, and the hidden miracles woven into our everyday lives. It is an act of faith to say, I believe you are providing even though I cannot see it fully. I believe you are with me in this season, even when everything feels uncertain. The more you practice this recognition, the more your heart will begin to tune into God's frequency, the more your eyes will adjust to the subtle ways He shows up, and the more your life will be filled with gratitude that cannot be shaken by circumstances. You begin to realize that provision is not just about abundance in the material sense, but about abundance in the spiritual, emotional, and relational sense. God's provision is His presence, His guidance, His protection, His wisdom, and His timing. And when you choose to recognize it, even when it is hidden, even when it is quiet, you are not just surviving, you are thriving in faith, hope, and thanksgiving. Too many people allow their circumstances to dictate the condition of their hearts. They wake up in the morning and the first thing they say is, I can't do this, or nothing is working out for me, and before the day even begins, they have already surrendered. But the truth is, your words have power. Your inner dialogue, the things you speak to yourself in the quiet corners of your mind, can either build your faith or demolish it. Every thought you nurture, every word you allow to take root in your spirit is either shaping your destiny or stealing your joy. If you want to change your life, you must first change what you are saying to yourself. You must begin to speak life to your circumstances, not death. Life is not always easy, and circumstances are not always favorable. Bills pile up, relationships strain, health falters, and opportunities seem distant. And yet, in the midst of that, God is still at work, orchestrating a plan that you may not yet understand. When your mouth and your mind begin to echo negativity, despair, and doubt, you are cutting yourself off from seeing the provision that is already on its way. But when you choose to declare, even in the midst of difficulty, God is my provider, He is my strength, He is working this out for my good, you begin to align your heart with His power, and suddenly, what seemed impossible begins to shift. Many people underestimate the impact of speaking life. They think it's just words. It won't change anything. But let me tell you something, the words you speak to yourself are seeds, and seeds grow. If you keep planting words like, I can't, I'm stuck, I'm not enough, you will harvest limitation, frustration, and defeat. But if you speak life, if you say, I am more than a conqueror, I am equipped, I am favored, I am not alone, you are planting seeds of hope, faith, and victory that will bear fruit in ways you cannot yet imagine. Your words have creative power. They can shape your thoughts, and your thoughts will shape your actions. Your actions will shape your outcomes. Everything begins with what you say to yourself in the quiet moments when no one else is listening, but God is. Speaking life is not about denying reality. It is not about pretending that your problems do not exist. It is about refusing to allow your problems to define you. It is about declaring truth over your situation. The Bible says that the death and life are in the power of the tongue. And those words are not limited to conversations with others. They are meant to guide your inner voice, your personal narrative, the dialogue that happens in your heart when no one else is around. When your inner voice begins to affirm, God is my refuge. I have what I need. I will not be moved. You are taking authority over your circumstances. You are telling the storm, you will not control me. You may rage, but my faith will remain anchored. There is a difference between talking about your problems and talking to your problems. Many people complain about their situations, and in that complaint, they give their power away. But speaking life is confronting your challenges with faith-filled declarations. It is saying, this situation will not defeat me. I am stronger than what I face. God's favor surrounds me. When you speak life, your words shift your perspective. They remind you that you are not defined by your current state, but by the one who holds your future. You begin to see possibilities where once there were only obstacles. You begin to hear doors opening that your ears were too distracted to notice. You begin to recognize provision that had always been there, but had been invisible through the lens of despair. Speaking life to your circumstances also impacts those around you. Your attitude becomes contagious when you choose to declare hope, courage, and faith in your own situation. You inspire others to do the same. You create an atmosphere where miracles are possible, where hearts are lifted, and where the Spirit of God is free to move. You are no longer a passive observer of your life. You become an active participant, declaring God's goodness, His power, and His provision even before it is visible. And here is the key. This is a discipline. You must train yourself to speak life when the world screams defeat. You must choose words of faith when fear wants to take over. You must remind yourself daily, I am not defined by what is around me. I am defined by who is within me. Your words have authority. Your inner dialogue can break chains or reinforce them. When you speak life to your circumstances, you are declaring that God is greater than any storm, bigger than any problem, and faithful to fulfill His promises. Too often, people confuse delay with denial. They see the clock ticking, the days passing, the weeks turning into months, and they begin to believe that God has forgotten them. They feel overlooked, abandoned, as if their prayers have fallen on deaf ears. But the truth is, delay is not denial. Just because your breakthrough has not arrived in the timing you expected does not mean it will never come. Sometimes God's timing is not about when we want it. It is about when we are ready to receive it, when the circumstances are aligned, and when the provision can manifest fully and permanently in our lives. Too many people are rushing through life, trying to force doors open that were never meant to open at that moment, and in doing so, they miss the hidden preparation that God is orchestrating. Delay is often a season of preparation. It is a time for growth, for learning, for strengthening your character and your faith. The delay is not a punishment. It is a lesson. God uses the waiting periods to build resilience, to teach patience, to align relationships, opportunities, and resources so that when the answer does arrive, it will be complete, sufficient, and life-changing. People are quick to give up during delay because they only see the absence, not the preparation that is happening behind the scenes. They only see the empty hands, not the work God is doing to fill them in the right way at the right time. Every delay carries with it a purpose. And when you understand that, you begin to look at waiting differently. You begin to see waiting not as a setback, but as a setup for something greater. The problem is that most of us are trained to live in immediate gratification. We want results instantly. We want our prayers answered now. We want the doors to open today. But God is not bound by our schedule. His plans are not rushed, and His timing is always perfect. Delay is a test of faith. It is a call to trust God. When everything around you seems uncertain, when the path seems blocked, and when hope feels distant, it is in these moments that your inner dialogue matters the most. You can choose to speak words of despair, saying, "I've waited too long, nothing is happening, I will never make it." Or you can declare, "God's timing is perfect, He is working behind the scenes, and my season of breakthrough is coming." What you say to yourself during delay will determine whether you emerge stronger and victorious or bitter and defeated. Every delay carries a lesson about alignment. Sometimes the breakthrough we are waiting for cannot come until we are fully prepared to receive it. Sometimes God is realigning people, resources, or situations so that the provision will not only meet our needs but exceed them. There is a divine timing that is greater than human understanding, a timing that sees the bigger picture, the long-term impact, and the fullness of the blessing. The delay is often a sign that God is not willing to settle for less for you. He is not rushing because He knows that the right moment will bring maximum benefit, lasting impact, and lasting joy. Understanding that delay is not denial also requires a mindset shift. You must begin to see waiting as an active process, not a passive one. Waiting is a season of preparation, of refining your faith, of strengthening your prayer life, of sharpening your vision, and of learning lessons that will serve you for a lifetime. Every unanswered question, every closed door, every season of silence is shaping you, equipping you, and positioning you for the manifestation of what you have been seeking. Those who fail to recognize this fall into despair because they only measure progress by immediate results, not by the transformation occurring within them during the delay. The power of your inner dialogue is magnified during times of delay. When you feel discouraged, when patience is wearing thin, you must speak life, faith, and affirmation into your own heart. Say to yourself, "This is not the end. This is not a denial. This is a season of preparation. God is orchestrating something bigger than I can see, and He will not fail." These words are not just encouragement, they are spiritual weapons that keep you aligned with God's plan. Every declaration of faith over a delayed situation strengthens your spirit, keeps hope alive, and positions you to receive the breakthrough in the fullness of God's timing. Delay is also a season to cultivate gratitude. Even while waiting, you can thank God for what you already have, for the lessons learned, for the growth experience, and for the provision that is yet to come. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, from frustration to faith, and from fear to expectation. When you recognize that delay is not denial, you stop seeing waiting as punishment and start seeing it as preparation, positioning, and provision in disguise. Life will test you. There is no way around it. There will be seasons when everything that can go wrong seems to go wrong. When the storms rage around you, when loss, disappointment, and pain feel like constant companions. And yet, it is in these very seasons that God wants to shape your perspective. He wants to teach you lessons that comfort alone cannot teach. He wants to mold your character in ways that ease and abundance never could. Hard seasons are not meant to break you. They are meant to build you. They are meant to stretch you, challenge you, and reveal the depth of your faith. The question is not whether hard seasons will come. They will. But whether you will allow them to define you or refine you. When the trials hit, it is easy to look at the storm and complain, to cry out, "Why me?" Why is this happening to me? But the perspective of faith sees beyond the immediate pain. It understands that every hard season carries with it hidden opportunities for growth. Every setback has a lesson. Every obstacle is a teacher, and every heartbreak, disappointment, or delay is a call to look deeper, not just outward. The problem is that most people focus on the damage, the frustration, the injustice, and they fail to see what God is doing in the background. They fail to recognize that the very challenges they despise may be the same ones preparing them for their greatest victories. Hard seasons force us to examine our inner dialogue. They reveal what we truly believe when life doesn't go according to plan. Do we trust God's timing, or do we doubt His goodness? Do we speak life over our circumstances, or do we allow negativity and despair to dominate our thoughts? The storms test our faith and reveal our level of gratitude. When we learn to speak truth into the chaos, when we declare, God is with me, He is shaping me, I will emerge stronger. We are allowing the hard season to refine our perspective rather than distort it. Perspective is everything because it colors how we interpret events, how we respond to challenges, and how we perceive provision. There is power in seeing the bigger picture. Hard seasons often appear unfair, senseless, and cruel, but faith teaches us to look beyond the surface. What feels like a setback may actually be a setup for something greater. What feels like a loss may actually be a lesson in disguise. What feels like the end may actually be the beginning of a new chapter. God uses difficult times to teach patience, to develop resilience, to grow compassion, and to deepen trust. When you allow hard seasons to shape your perspective, you begin to understand that life is not just about comfort or convenience. It is about growth, transformation, and alignment with God's purpose. Your perspective in hard seasons also influences your actions. When you see trials as punishments, you become bitter, reactive, and defeated. But when you see them as shaping moments, you begin to act differently. You treat people with more grace. You approach challenges with more creativity, and you navigate obstacles with more faith. Your inner dialogue shifts from complaining to declaring, from fear to faith, from despair to expectation. And that shift changes everything. It changes how you live in the present moment, how you respond to adversity, and how you prepare for the future. The key is not to wish the hard season away, but to engage it with a mindset that seeks understanding, growth, and alignment. When God allows difficulty, He is teaching something that comfort could never teach. He is showing you the strength you did not know you had, the patience you did not know you possessed, and the faith that can carry you through any storm. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to recalibrate your vision, to refine your character, and to reset your priorities. It is in hardship that resilience is born, determination is strengthened, and perspective is sharpened. Hard seasons also cultivate empathy. When you endure pain, struggle, or disappointment, you develop the ability to connect with others who are walking similar paths. You gain insight, compassion, and understanding that can only come from experience. Your perspective expands beyond self, and you begin to see life through a lens of grace, patience, and hope. You begin to understand that the storms are not just about you, they are about what God is building in you for the good of others. Ultimately, allowing hard seasons to shape your perspective is about alignment with God's purpose. It is about recognizing that what feels like suffering today may be the very thing that positions you for breakthrough tomorrow. It is about trusting that every challenge, delay, and difficulty is being orchestrated by a God who is greater than any obstacle, wiser than any plan, and more faithful than any circumstance. Too many people are trapped in the pursuit of perfection, and in that pursuit, they miss the beauty of progress. They are so focused on what is not yet accomplished, on what still feels incomplete, that they fail to recognize the victories that have already been achieved. Life is a journey, not a finish line. And if we are not careful, the desire for perfection can rob us of the joy of advancement. Every step forward, no matter how small, is worthy of celebration. Every effort, every attempt, every movement toward growth is evidence that God is working in our lives. And yet, too often, we are blind to it because our eyes are fixed on the ideal rather than the reality of our journey. Progress is evidence of faith in motion. It is proof that despite obstacle, disappointments, and setbacks, you have chosen to keep moving. It is evidence that you have refused to give up, that you have refused to quit, that you have refused to allow circumstances to define you. Yet, society often measures success by perfection, the flawless result, the complete accomplishment, the picture perfect finish, and in doing so, it ignores the sacred work happening in the process. God does not operate on the standard of human perfection. He operates in the spaces where growth is occurring, where hearts are being transformed, and where faith is being exercised. Progress, no matter how incremental, is the language of God's presence in our lives. Too often, people compare themselves to others and feel inadequate because they are not where someone else is, or they are not doing what someone else is doing. Comparison is the thief of joy. It makes you blind to the victories in your own journey. It makes you ignore the steps you have already taken and the mountains you have already climbed. Celebrating progress requires shutting out the noise of comparison and tuning into the voice of God, who reminds you that your journey is unique, your timing is perfect, and your steps are being ordered according to His plan. Every small step is a divine appointment, every minor victory is a miracle in disguise, and every forward movement, no matter how slight, is worthy of acknowledgement. Celebrating progress is also an act of gratitude. It trains your heart to recognize God's hand in the everyday moments, the small victories, the little wins that too often go unnoticed. It is saying, God, I see you working in my life. Even when the results are not yet complete, I see the ways you are shaping me, equipping me, and moving me closer to your plan. Gratitude for progress shifts your perspective from what is lacking to what is present, from frustration to faith, and from despair to expectation. It allows your heart to rejoice in the journey rather than only seeking validation in the destination. Perfection, on the other hand, can paralyze. It can make you afraid to start, afraid to try, afraid to take the next step because you are convinced it will not be flawless. But progress does not require perfection. Progress requires action, effort, and persistence. Progress is built on consistent steps, on learning from mistakes, on embracing failure as part of the process. When you celebrate progress, you acknowledge that every stumble, every detour, and every lesson learned is part of the pathway to success. You embrace the journey with all its imperfections because you recognize that growth cannot happen without movement, and movement cannot happen without effort, and effort cannot happen without faith. The inner dialogue that accompanies progress is crucial. You must speak to yourself words of encouragement, affirmation, and acknowledgement. Say to yourself, I may not be finished, I may not be perfect, but I am moving forward, I am growing, I am learning, I am advancing. These declarations strengthen your spirit, fuel your motivation, and keep your focus on the trajectory rather than the temporary setbacks. When you celebrate progress, you create momentum. You begin to see possibilities where once there were obstacles. You begin to recognize strength where once there was weakness. You begin to trust God's process in ways that perfection could never teach. Progress is cumulative. Every small step compounds over time. Every effort builds on the last. Every lesson learned adds to your wisdom. Every victory fuels your faith. When you celebrate progress, you acknowledge that the journey matters as much as the destination. You recognize that God is working in every detail, even the ones that seem insignificant. You begin to understand that success is not measured solely by a final outcome, but by the perseverance, faith, and dedication that carry you from one step to the next. Life will try to wear you down. Circumstances will press in. People will disappoint you. Expectations will be broken. And in the midst of it all, discouragement can creep into your heart like a thief in the night. It whispers, "This is too hard. You will never make it. Nothing is going right." And if you allow it, discouragement can steal your vision, your hope, your peace, and your joy. But there is a weapon far more powerful than fear, more effective than despair, and stronger than doubt. That weapon is gratitude. Gratitude is not just a polite response to blessings. It is a declaration of faith. It is a recognition that no matter what you see, God is still working, God is still providing, and God is still faithful. Gratitude is a spiritual force that shifts your focus from lack to abundance, from despair to hope, and from fear to faith. When discouragement comes, it wants you to focus on what is missing, what is wrong, and what has not happened. It wants you to forget all the times God has come through, all the lessons you have learned, and all the victories, large or small, that have already been accomplished in your life. Gratitude, on the other hand, trains your eyes to see God's hand in every situation. It reminds you that even when the outcome is not what you expected, even when the road is rough, even when the storm is raging, there is always something to thank God for. It may be your health, your breath, a roof over your head, a friend who cares, a lesson learned, or the simple fact that you are still standing. When your heart begins to acknowledge the good, your perspective shifts and discouragement loses its grip. The power of gratitude lies in its ability to rewire your inner dialogue. When the enemy whispers, "You can't do this," gratitude responds, "I have what I need because God has been faithful." When circumstances say, "This will never change," gratitude says, "God is working even when I cannot see it." Your thoughts are powerful. They shape your emotions, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. Gratitude acts as armor, protecting your mind and your spirit from the corrosive effects of negativity. It allows you to pause, reflect, and declare that you will not be defeated by temporary setbacks, by fear, or by doubt. Discouragement often tries to isolate you. It tells you that no one understands, that you are alone, that the weight of your struggles is too heavy to bear. But gratitude breaks isolation. When you focus on what is present, what is working, and what has been provided, you reconnect with God and with the blessings around you. Gratitude is a reminder that you are not abandoned. That provision has already been given, and that strength is available to you right now. It turns your attention away from what you lack and toward what you already have, creating an atmosphere where faith can grow, hope can flourish, and joy can return. Gratitude also empowers you to see discouragement as temporary. It shifts your perspective from the magnitude of the problem to the faithfulness of God. You begin to understand that no storm is permanent, no trial is endless, and no setback can outlast the power of God working in your life. Every blessing, every answered prayer, every moment of divine intervention becomes a reminder that discouragement is not a verdict. It is a challenge to trust God more, to speak life over your circumstances, and to hold fast to hope even when the outcome is delayed. The discipline of gratitude requires intention. It is not always easy, especially when circumstances are painful, when dreams are delayed, or when losses weigh heavy on your heart. But when you make the choice to thank God anyway, even for the smallest blessings, you are arming yourself with a weapon that discouragement cannot overcome. Gratitude produces joy in the midst of trials, peace in the midst of chaos, and strength in the midst of weakness. It is not a superficial response. It is a spiritual strategy. It shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, from lack to provision, from despair to hope, and from fear to faith. When you cultivate a heart of gratitude, your inner dialogue changes, your outlook changes, and your ability to endure increases. You begin to see that discouragement loses power in the presence of thanksgiving. You begin to understand that every trial, every challenge, and every storm carries a hidden lesson, a divine purpose, or an unseen provision. Gratitude forces your mind to recognize the good amidst the struggle, the provision amidst the lack, and the hope amidst the despair. It is a weapon, a shield, and a declaration that no matter what happens, God is still faithful, God is still in control, and you will not be defeated.